Buddhists seek wisdom, meaning, inner peace, and freedom from greed, hatred, and ignorance. The Buddhist way of life.
Kusala Bhikshu lives and works at the International Buddhist Meditation Center in the Koreatown section of Los Angeles. He cares for the grounds and facilitates meditation and discussion groups.
May those of us who have come together today. The thing that brought me to Buddhism was the fact that I turned 30, and I knew I'd be dead soon, because everybody over 30 died quickly. Now, I was a child of the 60s, and in the 60s, it was very important to question all authority and not trust anyone over 30. I remember watching a movie called Logan's Run, and in this movie, there was a little crystal put in the palm of your hand. When you turned 30, it started to blink, and they came and arrested you, and then they took you away, and nobody ever saw you again. So nobody in that whole culture was over 30. So I was sort of brainwashed into thinking that once I turned 30, I was very old and I would have to die. Because I was an agnostic, I was born a Lutheran. In high school, I became an agnostic. I didn't know what God was. I bought a book. The book was written by Houston Smith, and the book was called World Religions. And I read that book, and it had a chapter on Buddhism. And that chapter on Buddhism made me get another book, the phone book. And I found a meditation center, which is International Buddhist Meditation Center, where we now are. And so in 1980, I walked through that front door to learn how to meditate.
The International Buddhist Meditation Center in Los Angeles was founded in 1970 by Venerable Dr. Thich Thien An, a scholar Zen master from Vietnam. IVMC was one of the 4 original Zen centers founded in the United States to cater specifically to the needs of Western-born Americans.
Well, our founder was very clever. Our founder was a Vietnamese monk named Thich Thien An. He came to America in the mid-60s to teach a class at UCLA. His students wanted him to stay on and start a center so they could practice meditation and practice Buddhism. He also started 2 or 3 Vietnamese temples for Vietnamese only. But he started this temple, International Buddhist Meditation Center, for Westerners. And the reason he called it International Buddhist Meditation Center is he wanted all types of Buddhism to practice here. So in the past, we have had Zen Roshis teaching here. We've had Tibetan monks teaching here. We've had Vietnamese monks. We've had Theravada monks who have taught here and lived here. We've had a variety of Buddhism practiced here. So our center, even though it was founded by a Vietnamese monk, is a little Vietnamese, but you'll find also Kuan Yins from Japan. You'll find a statue of Ananda from Sri Lanka. You'll find a variety of Buddhist practices going on here because he thought that that's the only way it could be established in America. Not to have one kind of Buddhism, but to bring all the Buddhisms together and let the Americans choose which one they wanted to practice. In our tradition, in the Mahayana tradition, we take celibacy. It's part of being a monk. And people who are married oftentimes look at that as being the hard way, but I think that's the easy way. If you have a wife or a girlfriend, it takes a lot of time, money, energy. Being single is much easier.
When did you start to feel you want to be single or not getting married?
Well, it took me a very long time. It was in my 40s. When I first started studying Buddhism, I was 30, and I felt sorry for the monks. I'm thinking, think what they're missing. They don't have a girlfriend. They don't have any fun. They don't, have a family. And I never want to do that. And as I studied the Dharma, as I studied meditation, as my understanding deepened, I saw that if I didn't have a wife or children or a full-time job, I would have a lot more time to find out about who I was, to find out about Buddhism, and to be of service to others. So the meditation center where I live, which is the International Buddhist Meditation Center, gives me a small room upstairs, and that's where I live. They give me health insurance, so if I get sick, I don't have to die. And they give me a little bit of money each month so I can buy new socks and underwear. And then that gives me so much more time to go out into the world to be of service to community. So I'm at UCLA. I've been a chaplain at a prison. I've been a chaplain at a juvenile hall. I'm currently a police chaplain in Garden Grove, and I ride along with the police officers, and that's a very interesting experience. So I have a lot of extra time because I don't have a wife or a girlfriend. And I don't have a lot of money, so I doubt if any girl would want to go out with me anyway. A lot of Americans are very unhappy. They're working 2 or 3 jobs, they have a wonderful house, and they're still not happy. Something's wrong. And in Christianity, what they say is you'll get your reward after you die. You'll be able to spend the rest of eternity with God or Jesus. And what Buddhism says is you can have a good life right now in this very present moment. What you need is wisdom and compassion. And the path of Buddhism teaches us how to become wise, how to have an open heart and be compassionate. And this day we are now living becomes the best day of our life. So as a Buddhist, we don't have to wait until we die to be happy. We can do it right now.
How young are they?
The youngest ones I've spoken to were in 7th grade.
Do they understand?
They do and did. And one of my favorite stories is about suffering, because a lot of Americans don't know what suffering is. They can't quite figure it out. And in this 7th grade class, I gave a presentation. They were studying world history, and they found out about Buddhism, and they asked me if I would go and speak to their class on Buddhism. And after I had finished my presentation, a girl named Esmeralda stood up, and she said, "Reverend Kusala, I now understand the difference between pain and suffering. Suffering happens when you don't want to have the pain. Suffering happens if you have a Ford and want a Honda. Suffering happens when you're married and don't want to be. Suffering happens when you're not married and want to be. Suffering happens when things are different than they're supposed to be." And she understood that. I don't know how.
Then, Reverend Kusala, what characteristic define American Buddhism?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, American Buddhism will have more equality, that men and women will have more equality, ordained men and women. Shasta Abbey, which is a traditional Soto monastery in Northern California, they call all their monks, whether they're female or male. They have 2/3 women and 1/3 men, and they're all called monks. They all wear the same robes. There's no difference. They all do the same jobs, if they can physically do the same jobs. So number one, there'll be a certain sense of equality. I think, secondly, there'll be a lot of diversity, but that diversity will eventually turn into unity. There won't be simply one kind of Buddhism in America. I think in America, we may find there'll be more Dharma teachers or lay Buddhist teachers than there will be monks or nuns, because we don't have a strong tradition of monasticism in America. The only monastics that I can think of are the Catholics. But most of America isn't Catholic. Most of America, if they're Christian, is Protestant. So they are married. The pastors, the priests, the ministers are married. They're able to have a job. They have a church that they run on Sundays. So I think what we're going to find is we're going to have a very strong lay clergy, Buddhist lay clergy in America. But we're always going to have the monastics as well, because the monastic tradition, the monks and nuns, are the link to the Buddha. The Buddha was a monastic, after all, who renounced the world. So those two things, I think, will be part of American Buddhism. And then, as we talked about earlier, I think we need to have an American Buddha. That the Buddha statue, when I look at a Burmese Buddha statue, he looks Burmese. And a Japanese Buddha statue, he looks Japanese. And we need to have an American Buddha statue that looks American. But I'm not quite sure what an American looks like.
You have no idea.
I have no idea because there's so many different kinds of Americans. And then last but not least, we're going to have our own robes, as you mentioned. We're color-coded. So if I was a Sri Lankan monk, I'd have saffron robes. If I was a Vietnamese monk, like I am, I have brown robes. If I was a Japanese priest, I'd have black robes. Korean, gray. Tibetan, maroon with orange trim. And I think America will have blue denim. So part of our heritage.
Western style. Huh?
Western style. And when the Buddhists talk, they have so much to offer the other religions because we found our place. Our place is suffering and the end of suffering. Our place is achieving nirvana. Our place is always being happy and never having to be sad and never having to be sick and never having to die again. So the message of Buddhism is as true today as it was 2,500 years ago. It's still because we are still human beings and we are still ignorant and deluded. And some of us think war is the answer, and some of us think having a lot of money is the answer, and some of us think having 2 girlfriends is the answer. But that's not the answer, according to Buddhism. So I'm lucky to be an American who found Buddhism in his country, was able to become ordained as a Buddhist monk in his country without having to leave, and was able to stay and teach Buddhism in his country. It's a very special time. And some of the best books on Dharma are written in English. And I have heard that there are Asian Buddhist monks learning English so they can read the English translations because they are better. And 100 years ago, if you were an American and wanted to study Buddhism, you'd have to learn Chinese or Sanskrit or Tibetan. Now we can walk to any major bookstore and have hundreds and hundreds of books. Some of the best Dharma teachings available in the whole world are right in those bookstores. So it's changed dramatically. In just the 100 years Buddhism has been in America. And now we have Western monks and nuns who were born and educated in America becoming ordained and teaching other Americans about Buddhism. So it's a very special time. And I'm happy to be one of them. And American Buddhism is better Buddhism for Americans. And it's always been that way. Every time Buddhism went to another country, it became part of that country.
Culture.
And the culture. And those people living in that country, in that culture, then learned Buddhism in their own language, with their own stories, and they had their own practice.
This program was brought to you by Bukyo Dendo Kyokai, Society for the Promotion of Buddhism. The founder of Bukyo Dendo Kyokai, late Dr. Reverend Yehan Numata, believed that the Buddhist teaching could assist in bringing about lasting peace and happiness for all of humanity. Society for the Promotion of Buddhism is dedicated to continue Dr. Numata's dreams of sharing Buddhism with others by distributing the Teaching of Buddha books, which are translated to 42 different languages and donated to hotels worldwide. For further information, visit www.bdkamerica.org or call 626-369-5035.